Norwegian horse.
No, the Mongolian horse.
Oh.
Welcome to the Heart to Heartland podcast. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back to Heartland. It's just me, Soile, in the studio this week. I thought I'd give Izzy a week to rest, but I didn't want to leave you empty-handed or empty-eared, I guess. So I wanted to do a solo episode, and that is why I asked you guys to send in like questions you would like to hear me answer or topics you'd like to hear me ramble about, and that's what we're doing today. So you're basically my co-hosts. Anyway, before we get into all that, I have a few updates from the Heartland world that I thought I'd go through. Well, first of all, Heartland didn't win the fan award from Canadian Screen Awards, which was a bummer. But there's always next year because, you know, as long as there's season 16, we have hope. Then we have a couple of new places to watch the show from. First of all, BYU TV in the United States has Heartland. I don't know if we talked about that before, but yeah, in case we haven't, I just wanted to bring attention to that. If you're in the United States and want to find new channels or ways to watch the show. And speaking of that, Film Rise Free Movies and TV Shows has Heartland's season all up to season 13. And it's on like YouTube platform, but the bad thing is it's geo-blocked. So it's not available for every country, but you know, if you can find ways around that, you know, just know that that's available. And then right now, Up Faith and Family is streaming season 15, but soon Up TV, which is the TV version of the same thing kind of, is gonna start airing season 15 on May 19th. Which is Thursday, 8 p.m. For those who have not wanted to take another streaming service, Up Faith and Family. It's coming your way, and yeah, those are all the streaming news I have for you today. But there was one new project that I noticed. Cindy has Warming Up to You coming up, a new project that's airing May 7th on Hallmark Channel 8 p.m. So if you're interested in fitness or just the general Hallmark movie thing, tune in. It's kind of weird to just do this myself. You know, when I'm doing this with Izzy, I don't really think about us filming. I'm just talking to her. But today, I'm all alone, and that's why I needed you guys to help me out so this wouldn't get too awkward. Over on Instagram, I asked you if you could send me voice memos, or alternatively, when people asked if they could just send like a question in a text form, I said it was fine because, yeah, I get it. I don't like listening to my own voice, and you know, sometimes people are insecure about their English and stuff like that. So basically, I just wanted to not be here alone in a way. And I wanted to thank you for everyone who sent in questions, and I have fun time listening to them and try to think about the answers. So let's get started. So first we have a question from Stephanie. What has been your least favorite storyline that involves Amy and a horse? Like something that you found super cringy and wish it wasn't in the show. On the flip side, what has been your favorite Amy and a horse storyline? Okay, this was something I had to think about for a while because there are so many horse stories, and I would say mostly they've been pretty good. Some better than others, some like okay, and then there are a couple that have not necessarily been my favorite. But it was hard to think of if there was anything that made me like cringe or just that I didn't like. I'm sure there are some, but I just didn't remember. Hi, it's me from the editing part of the video. While I was editing, I thought of something. I can't believe I didn't think of this when I was filming, but I didn't like the Attila storyline, the Mongolian horse that was obviously not Mongolian horse. Or relating to the Mongolian storyline, but also because fjords are my favorite horse breed among few others. So I was excited when I saw that they would finally have them on, and then they turn out to be Mongolian horses. So it annoyed me, and I'm petty. I'm sorry, but I didn't like that. But the one that comes to mind that always bothered me is surprisingly from the very first episode when Amy is working with Spartan. I know it's like iconic and everything, but I didn't like that she screamed at a Spartan. I just don't feel like you should ever scream at your horse, no matter how frustrated you are. And obviously it was just like, emotions were running high and Amy was sad and frustrated. And so I get it, but at the same time, it always bothered me a little bit. As for my favorites, there were a couple that immediately came to mind. I'm sure there are like many, many, many others, but the two that came to mind was season 6 when Ty and Amy go off to put up Stumpy's tents, and there's the whole engagement storyline, but Amy and Ty are working with this wild foal and they have to use what they have in the nature. And I always love that they kind of had to improvise because Amy uses the herbs a lot and she uses the pen and all that kind of stuff, but I love that they had to kind of be creative and find a solution to help the fall and its mother. So I like that. And I think it was nice that they stretched it out so we could see it, unfolding slowly. And speaking of in a similar vein, I really loved in season 5 when Amy was working with Alcatraz, the horse that was really mentally damaged, if I can say that. And we could see the transformation throughout a couple of episodes, and then we have Lily working with him and all that, and I just thought that was a pleasure to watch because I understand that they want to have these like horse of the week kind of storylines where the solution is found within that episode, because it's not always like that, or I would imagine. So I appreciated that they didn't just deal with this kind of horse in just one episode, because he needed time and his story needed time to evolve. So I really like those. The next question is from Prita, and this is what she asked.
What is your unpopular opinion of Heartland as a whole?
This was a hard question, I have to say. It was hard to kind of, because I'm sure I have unpopular opinion like about characters or storylines, but in general about the show, I had to think about it for a minute. And I don't know if I have like fully developed thoughts about this, but one that came to mind was that Heartland is often dubbed as this like feminist show. And I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, there's a lot of female leads and there's a lot of female characters driving the plot, but I feel like it's a very narrow way to look at womanhood or female experience. And I think it's very white way to look at it. I mean, the biggest struggles sometimes seem to be like, oh, a guy doesn't think that I could rope so I'm gonna show him. And I think when you think about the casting, obviously, the family is this one unit, so it can be tricky to kind of have other than white characters involved. But then at the same time, there's side characters that you could involve more. And I think a feminist show should be kind of like educational in a way, not like dry and boring, but just showing women from different races, ethnicities, abilities, sexualities, spiritualities, class, all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to Heartland, it's very white, very able-bodied, very middle to upper class. You have stories about women going back to abusive relationships and, mental health problems, but then it's kind of like brushed aside, which is a sad thing because I think those would be really good stories to tell about women. I guess the way women are portrayed in media is, I don't know, it's kind of similar to what Heartland has to offer. I don't think it's necessarily giving us anything new, or I can't think of anything that's like, whoa, that like this is groundbreaking and, this is not something we've never seen before. So yeah, I guess that's my unpopular opinion. I don't know. What do you guys think? The next question comes from Mary Catherine, and she said,
"Hi, Soile. I know you've talked about like how much you don't like the Mongolia story and how bad it was, but I'm wondering if like you could maybe touch on the storylines that you do like, and the ones that you just really enjoyed seeing. For me, that would be season 5 Liberty Work storyline. It was just really cool to see that like the whole arc of the whole season with Amy finding out about it and then doing the show. And then season 12, when Ty and Amy started working together, that was just really cool to see as a Tammy fan. And in season 14, I actually really enjoyed the storyline of grief, and it was just so beautifully done.
I actually agree with all of those. I love the Liberty Work. I love that it was a whole seasonal arc for Amy, and you could watch her learn something and then succeed. Like, that was very fulfilling. And I think season 14 as a whole, it was kind of similar because you had a starting point and then you have an ending point, and you see all the like phases of the grief process, and not just with Amy but the whole family. And I really appreciated that. I think they did a great job with it, and it was a hard season for them for many reasons, but I think it might be one of the best seasons of Heartland ever, and I think it's something a lot of TV shows haven't done before. So I really appreciated that. And I don't know if this is like a well-known thing or if I've talked about this. I'm sure I've mentioned it, but I used to be a big Ty and Amy fan, but over the years, my interest kind of whittled. So just like you, I was interested to seeing Ty and Amy work together, especially when you think about, where they come from, their background. Like, Amy has more holistic approach to healing horses, whereas Ty is more about Western medicine. So I was really interested in seeing those two sides coming together, and I think season 12 had a bit of that. But it was just unfortunate that at that point I was kind of frustrated with the pairing and I wasn't that interested in Ty anymore. So it was kind of like a little too late maybe for me at that point. But I did appreciate it that they did show that before Ty passed, just to kind of give us idea how that worked, because I felt like they really kept pushing it on, and then it just felt like maybe they had forgotten all about it. So I'm glad that they did that. But as for other stories, for me, I really liked when Amy had her accident in season 7, when she was kicked in the head by a horse and then she lost her sight. I think they could have done even more with that. I mean, there was obviously, her recovery when she got her sight back, and then her fear of getting back to the saddle in a way, and maybe a little bit of fear of horses. Not necessarily a fear of horses, but just that trauma coming back. I really like that, and I think they could have expanded it even more. Like there was that episode where she had struggles, and at the end of the episode she was just fine again, which just felt like a bit of a cap out for me. So I would have loved to see that go even further. And then after all that, she had trouble getting clients. I think that was something that they did well as well, because, when something like that happens, it can take a while to get back on your feet. So I appreciated them showing that. Like it wasn't a success, but it was what Amy needed in order to kind of move forward. And then something else I thought about was season 9. I know it was like dramatic and like, oh my God, this teenage stuff, but I did appreciate them showing Georgie's reaction and journey after Lou and Peter announced that they would divorce, because I think that's very relatable for a lot of kids, and I think it was it makes sense for her character. Obviously not every kid runs away, thankfully, but there were a lot of emotions that I think children of divorce probably could relate to, and I like that not everything in the show is like perfect, and not everything has a fairy tale ending, even though, Lou and Peter. Anyway, no, let's not get into all that. So I really liked that. And I think it was important for Georgie's character to kind of face something so huge and then come out of it and see that she could survive it. And, it's not the end of the world for her life. And I don't know. I just really like that storyline. I don't know if this is like one big storyline, but I did love when they introduced Dude Ranch to the story, especially in season 2, like when we had a lot of guests coming in and there were all these storylines involving them, those bloggers and Mindy Fanshawe and Tara and Badger and all that kind of stuff. I just thought that Dude Ranch was a great addition to the show's kind of world, and I think it still has a lot of potential, and I'm sad that they haven't really used that in the later seasons, because it just provides more opportunities. But I think maybe because of COVID, they try to keep the guest stars kind of limited. I don't know, but I hope that they get back to it. I know Lou's like busy at the moment, but maybe she should hire someone. I don't know. Jessica should take over. What do you think? Anyways, I hope that we see the return of the Dude Ranch. Then the next question comes from Diane.
Hi, Soile. I've noticed on social media sites that a few of the Heartland fans would like the writers to incorporate Michelle's pregnancy into the Lou storyline. Given where the show left off on season 15 and the fact that she'll be due in July, that's highly unlikely that they could do that. But just for fun, I would like your opinion as a fan fiction author. If there were something that could be done and you were the showrunner, is that something you would do? All right. Thank you.
This is something that I really have to think about. Like, I know what I feel about it, but I really wanted to see kind of if there was more to it than what I think, and how would I feel if Lou was pregnant in the show as well. I mean, first of all, I don't want them to do it. So I really tried to push myself to think, okay, how would they do it? And I just couldn't get there. I mean, obviously, Luke could be like pregnant, like surprise, but I just don't see it fitting into the storyline. I know that Michelle said, like, this was way before she announced her pregnancy. She said that she wishes that Lou would have another baby, and I remember thinking, like, that's so weird. Like, why would she say that? Because she just had a storyline with Mitch with the children issues, because Lou said she's kind of moved on from that part of her life. So I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, especially with everything that's going on with her life. Like, it just makes sense. And with that said, I just don't see the storyline coming out as something positive at this point. And I really tried to think about that, but I don't know. Like, first of all, we don't know where they stand with Peter. Like, it feels like the narrative they tried to push in the latest season was that Lou is suddenly fine with Peter living in Vancouver and them not being this traditional family, like all these like ideas that she used to have, like having their own home and raising their kids together and all that. Like, she's suddenly fine with that. And I'm not saying that that couldn't work with a baby, but I just feel like Lou has already given so much for Peter, if that makes sense. And I just feel like even this, like, them getting back together is another thing that Lou is giving up for Peter. Like, what she wants and what she's dreaming about. And I get that happens when you love someone, but I don't know, I just feel like I'm concerned about Lou at this point. So adding a baby to the mix, I don't like it. So that's a concern I have. And then when you think about the practical side, like, so we have Tim and Jessica living in the loft. Lindy's living in Marion's old room. Katie, I assume, is living at the attic where Georgie used to live. Amy's living in her room. Lou is living in her old bedroom. Jack and Lisa are in Jack's room and all. So basically, the house is full and it's bursting at the seams, basically. So I just feel like something would have to change. Either Tim and Jessica would have to move out, which, could happen. But I just don't see Amy or Lindy moving out. Jack and Lisa, no way. Katie, where would she go? And we don't know what's happening with Georgie at this point. So, that as well, like, I'm sure the baby would live with Lou in her bedroom, but at some point, she would have to think about moving out or something to kind of change that. From production perspective, I don't see that happening. And speaking of that, they would have to get new twins to play them. I don't know if they're interested in that. That's another costly thing. And something that's been kind of bothering me with Lou's pregnancy and Amy's pregnancy was the absent fathers. We had Peter in Dubai. Ty was off to Mongolia when Amy was pregnant. So would this be another single mother storyline in a way, where you have the mother of the baby basically alone going through the steps of the pregnancy? I mean, I'm sure Peter could come around every now and then to, go to the doctor or buy things for the baby or whatever. But I just feel like we've seen that, we've done that. So I would love to see an involved father during the pregnancy who's not Tim Fleming. And because, Michelle is so late in the pregnancy when they start filming season 16, if they start filming, it would mean that we would have missed all that preparation and all those steps again. And how convenient for the production, of course. I don't want to see it happening. So to put it shortly, I hope it's not happening. But if it is, it's going to be interesting to see how they will do it. Then we have next question from New Chat Gallery. She didn't send a voice memo, and I said it was totally fine. But she asked, what is the difference between the real world and the Heartland world that makes you or the fans love the show? I mean, I can only answer this from my own perspective, but I would say Heartland is like this fantasy world, which is still somewhat rooted in reality. It looks real, it feels real enough for us to believe it. But of course, there's all these like magical elements to it as well. I mean, depends what you believe in, but for most people, it's probably the fact that you can kind of count on Heartland having this happy ending, whereas in real life, it's not given. I mean, obviously, in the show, a lot of sad things have happened as well, tie-dyeing, marrying, dying, divorces, all that, like things that are part of the life. So it's not perfect, but I think those also help show people that that's what happens and you can survive it, even though obviously the show is very different in a sense that it's like 40 minutes in a week type of situation. So you're not living it 24/7, but you can kind of imagine yourself into the situation and just kind of go from there. And I think that's probably the biggest appeal. But I also think that there's this ideal of the ranching life. I mean, for me, like I live in a city. I'm from the countryside. So I love seeing the beautiful nature, the animals, and kind of hanging out at the ranch, but not doing the chores that I probably wasn't too happy to do every day. And then I think it's seeing these people succeed, fall in love, having friends and family. Like, I know I've said this before, but I basically spent more time with this family than I do with my actual family because we live far away from each other. So I think part of it is like visiting your family or friends or just having that familiarity and that place you can always go to feel safe and just calm, because I think in real life you don't necessarily always have that, but then you kind of get it through Heartland. So the rest of the questions are from Rachel. I had a really good laugh this morning when I listened to these questions, and she's just amazing. So let's hear them one by one. There's, I think, 12 in total, so buckle up.
Yes, hello, it's Rachel, aka No Context Heartland. If you are going to be playing these in the episode, I don't know if you're just going to do that or read them out. But anyway, hi, love you, love the podcast. I want to know your favorite underrated Lou Fleming relationship. Not necessarily romantic, just like underrated connection with another character and why you like it the best.
So you said they don't have to be romantic, and I appreciated that because, oftentimes we only think about the romantic relationship, and that's not all there is to it. So I don't know if these are like underrated, but I feel like whenever we think about Lou, we usually think about her romantic relationships or her relationship with her family or her kids. So I try to think about other relationships outside that. And the first that came to mind was Mallory. I mean, they were such a fun duo to watch. You had Lou as this like big sister type, and Mallory was like the little sister, but at the same time the chemistry was sometimes switched. Like Mallory was giving Lou advice, and Lou was being the one who didn't know what to do. So I really love that. And I really love that there was this humor element to it because both Michelle and Jessica are really funny. And I really love that. And I miss that. And I feel like when you think about Mallory or her relationship with the family or the other characters, I don't think Lou's necessarily the first one to come to mind, but I think they had a lot of good scenes and good storylines together. So, Mallory. The other one that I thought about was Quinn. I know we only saw them a little bit, but I was really drawn to that chemistry and element of because we've never seen a mother who's had a relationship with her daughter's boyfriend, I don't think. So that was something new, and I think Michelle and Jordan laid together well. And I was really looking forward to seeing more of them and kind of seeing how Lou would be in this new role. But I don't know if we're gonna see more of that. I wish we would have, or wish we will. I guess time will tell. But that came to mind, especially the scene where Lou thinks that Quinn is about to propose to Georgie, and she's like, "But are you sure? She's really young," and then Quinn, after a while, Quinn is like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "It's the same thing you are, like, we're simpatico and all that."
What are you talking about?
Same. Yeah, we're talking about the same thing. We are completely simpatico. I'm glad we could hash this out. Good chat.
I really love that scene.
It's Rachel again with another question. I would like to know your favorite song off of Avon's album. I know this isn't technically Heartland related, sort of it is. It's fine. But your favorite song on the album, or if you can't pick, then I will accept a top 3.
Okay, so this was difficult. I can't just choose one. So I had to narrow it down to top 3. I would say my favorite song from his first album is probably Fire. That's the kind of music I like to listen. Like there's a little bit of edge, but it's like poppy, but a little bit of rocky. And the second one I love a lot is Home in You. I don't always remember all the lyrics to it, but I do sing along to it. I don't know. It's on my range of singing, I guess. So I would say that. It's another pop. It really, like, as soon as I see the name of the song, I have it in my head. And the third one I like the most is probably Heartland. I mean, iconic right away, catchy as hell. What can I say? And I mean, you said top 3, but I had to include My Christmas Gift because that's probably one of my favorite Christmas songs. So.
Okay, I've thought of another question. I want to know your favorite, no, not your favorite. Those are the words that I didn't mean to use. I would like to know a plot line that you wish hadn't been dropped, and what you would have liked to see out of it. Just like the first one that comes to your mind.
There's a lot of these probably, but the first one that came to mind was the eating disorder storyline with Georgie. I mean, obviously, it's a very touchy subject and probably very hard to navigate. And I was disappointed with how they handle it. I mean, I know we've talked about this before, so it's nothing new, but it was one of those storylines that I thought they never do. So when they did it, it was like, whoa, are they actually going there? And when it started to seem like they were, I was just like getting more involved. And I thought it was a really important storyline to tell, or would have been if they would have explored it even more. And I think it's an issue that's not talked about enough within the equestrian scene. So I'm really bummed that they kind of dropped it, or they were like, okay, she's fine now. Because that's usually not how it goes from what I've gathered. So it's a shame that they dropped that. Another one that comes to mind, obviously, is the Shane storyline. Not saying that I was a big fan of Shane per se, but the fact that they introduced him into the story and made such a big deal out of him was like, okay, so that's it? Like, we never hear about him again, and how is he even doing these days? I wish they wouldn't have dropped that, or they would find a way to bring him back. I mean, recast him if that's the problem. Because I feel like at this point of the story, there's not a lot of young males in the show. I mean, last season we had Logan, which was nice, but now that Ty's dead, Mitch is gone, Georgie's friends, Adam, Wyatt are gone. There's no one to kind of fit into that demographic. Having this long lost brother come back to the show and build a proper relationship with the family would be kind of nice.
Okay, this question is specifically for one group chat, and I would like to know, if Ty had died earlier, what your thoughts would have been on it. You can pick any of the numerous times that he almost died and just roll with it, and let me know what plots you would have seen, how you think it would have affected the story differently than it did the way it is in canon.
Okay, so first of all, I tried to think of all the times that he seriously got injured or could have died. I mean, there's a lot, but the ones that came to mind was season 3, plane crash, season 5, the motorcycle accident, season 9, when he fell from that cliff, and then season 10, the tick bite, and season 13, obviously, when he was shot. Season 3, I was a big fan of Ty back then. So I would have been seriously mad if he would have died before Ty and Amy really had a chance to develop their relationship, and we would have missed out a lot. I feel like it would have probably been too much to Amy at that point, because the loss of Marion was still fresh in her mind. I don't know. It's too much death, I feel like. So I wouldn't have liked that. And besides, the season 3 storyline is a really good storyline, so we would have missed out some of it because, Ty would have been dead, so it would have been different. As for season 5's motorcycle accident, yeah, I wouldn't have liked that, especially when the engagement was so close. Obviously, at that point, we didn't know if it was. I mean, Amy started to wear her promise ring again, but it was still up in the air. So I wouldn't have liked that. I probably would have stopped watching the show for a while at least. And then season 9, I mean, I started to dislike Ty a little bit around season 8, and from then on out, it's just like, pew. So season 9 was a little on the edge of that, but I would have probably been like really disappointed about that because they had just gotten married. So for him to die at that point just would have been so stupid. And I don't know if we would have gotten good storylines out of that at that point. It just feels like kind of random at that point. Season 10, I'm thinking 2 different points. Before Lindy was born, when Ty got back from Mongolia, yeah, it would have been so frustrating to have him so close, but so far from, Lindy, especially because I was so frustrated about Ty being gone throughout the season. So that would have been just the crappiest cherry on top to have him die after everything. Like, no scenes around the pregnancy, basically, or just few. And then not seeing him with Lindy at all, like that would have sucked. And then initially they did have plans for Ty to collapse after Lindy was born. So that would have bothered me as well. I mean, we would have seen him with Lindy for a little while, but even before anything could really start, he would have been gone. I'm fine with Ty dying in season 13. I think that was the only time I would have been okay with him dying, which I am, because I felt like we got a little bit of storyline with him and Lindy, and they could wrap up some of the things. Like, we finally got to see Ty and Amy working together as partners, and then, you know, him kind of coming in terms of not wanting to run away again or ever. So I think they wrapped it up pretty nicely. And so maybe that helped with me being okay with it. And especially after being so frustrated about, you know, Ty being gone so much, I think that really helped. And obviously, like I said before, I really like season 14. I think they did a great job. So I think good things came out of it.
Guess who's back again with another question. This one is about Georgie. I would like to know your favorite Georgie relationship, whether or not they actually dated, just what your favorite ship or potential ship for her would be and why. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, so I know we haven't seen a lot of Quinn. I know we've only seen him in like 8 episodes, but I love the chemistry. I love the potential. I love that it's taking Georgie's character into a more mature journey. And I'm sad that we haven't gotten a chance to see more of them. I feel like there really is potential for this to be Georgie's forever love, or whatever the term is. As for the other guys, I would say Wyatt was also a good one, a good match. I mean, obviously there were frustrating parts, and I feel like I don't think he always understood Georgie's horse world like Quinn does. So that was always something that I kind of wasn't sure about. I thought Dempsey and Alicia had a good chemistry, and I thought they were interesting and different couple. And then Adam, I mean, I know there were a lot of problems, but I sort of liked that there was this romantic relationship that was awkward and felt real in that sense, like that it wasn't like this epic thing, or the way that they kind of went through it. Like, there were real problems, and you know, the characters didn't always know how to navigate those situations. So I really appreciated that, and I love that there was this nerdy element to them, because it's something we've not seen on the show before or since. So I like that. I don't know if some people consider Steven part of the Georgie romantic circle. I personally don't, because I felt like it was more one-sided from his side. If we're taking him into consideration, I would say he would be my last. It was even more awkward than Georgie and Adam, and that was too awkward for me. So that's the one that I wasn't a big fan of. And as for Dylan, I thought it was kind of creepy at times, like how they made him appear everywhere and he was just there, and it was like, it felt too much. There was potential, but I didn't like how they executed it. Yeah, not for me.
I'm going to send you so many questions, and you're going to be so sick of me, because I'm going to be like 3/4 of the episode, and I'm so sorry to all the listeners. Based on Bay's incredible performance this last season as Katie, should we get season 16 and potentially any future seasons? What storylines would you love to see for Katie specifically?
Honestly, I don't know how to answer this. I try to think about possible storylines, but I don't know if I have anything specific in mind. But I sort of thought about Katie as a character, like what we know about her so far. I feel like, I don't know if she's a big horse person. I mean, she can ride. We know that. And she probably doesn't mind mucking up the strolls and stuff like that. But I don't know if she's like into competing or getting her own horse. So maybe it would be interesting if she was more involved with the not horses storylines, just typical teenager stuff. And I kind of want to see adventures back. When Ty and Amy were younger, they used to do stupid stuff. Georgia used to do stupid stuff. Mallory, all the kids. And as frustrating as those are, I would like to see something like that with Katie and Parker, possibly. I mean, obviously, they seem a little bit smarter than all of those previous characters when it comes to that kind of stuff. But who knows? Like, anything could happen. And then I wonder if we get Katie working at Maggie's at some point. I mean, obviously not yet, but who knows like how long the show goes on and how long she's involved. But I would kind of like to see that because it's kind of this rite of passage almost at this point. And I miss Maggie's. We haven't seen it in a while because, Georgie's not been there. Lou's busy with other stuff. So I miss it. And if she's the opportunity we get to visit Maggie's again, then I would love it. Like I said, she's 12, 13 at this point. So that's not going to happen anytime soon. But just came to mind for future, whenever.
I swear I'm just going to keep sending questions until I stop thinking of them. And now that I'm thinking, my mind is just like on overload. So there's probably going to be more. I am wondering how you would like to see the show end. Any thoughts you have on specific scenes, specific plot lines you'd like to have wrapped up, places where you'd like certain characters to be?
I thought about this a lot in the past. I feel like when I was a Ty and Amy fan, it was always about them moving into the house and having a kid or kids, possibly. And I had this like vivid image in my head about them standing at the porch and the camera zooming out, which is funny now because when I've seen season 15, that kind of happened. I mean, obviously Ty was the man at the moon at that point, but as for the other aspect, Amy's back in the house with Lindy. They were at the porch watching the sky. It gave me this nice feeling. So that is kind of something in the vein of me picturing the ending. At this point, it's hard to say what could happen because I hope we're not at that point yet. The only thing I'm struggling with is whether I want to have Jack dead or alive. I know that sounds really like wrong. In no way do I want to see Jack die. I would just break if that ever happens in the show. But I'm just wondering if that is something they're gonna do. That would be really hard, especially if it's anywhere close to the show ending. Because it's like you're still grieving, and then this grieving of the show comes out, and it's just like too much. So I would basically want something happy. I would want the family together somehow, like maybe there's Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever, just them having a dinner together and just everyone being in some kind of good stage at their life. And then maybe Amy sneaks out to the porch, and who knows whether she's alone there. I don't know. But I would love if the ending had a feeling that this is not the end in a way, and the life will go on at the ranch and they'll be okay. I did also consider if I would like to see like a flash forward almost, like let's say a couple of minutes of Lindy being an adult doing something similar Amy has done in the past maybe, and then us getting that kind of feeling of, oh yeah, like there will always be a horse whisperer at the Heartland Ranch or something like that, like something really cheesy but kind of like, okay, that's kind of good. Like, I don't know, a feel good ending is what I'm hoping.
Okay, this is kind of a difficult question because I don't know how you'll want to answer it or if you'll want to answer it, and you can totally skip this one if you want to, I guess. I am wondering what your thoughts are on the quality of the show overall and whether it has remained the same or whether certain eras of the show have been better or worse. Not like worse, but like not as hard hitting or anything. Like I personally feel that kind of seasons 8 to 10, a lot of it is just not as interesting, if that makes any sense. Like I feel like the writing maybe suffered a little bit until they started to get some new ideas and things going. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on that, or if you think that it's, I don't know, anything like that. You can skip this question if you don't want to answer
I
it.
would have to agree with you on that. I feel like seasons 10 to 13 were kind of like something was missing. I don't know what it is. Like there are a lot of good moments and there are good episodes in those seasons, but just something feels different. I don't know if it's because, especially with season 12 and 13, there was shorter seasons, so obviously they had to kind of rush some things. They were maybe trying to think of ways to bring something new in the show, and they weren't sure what that would be. Maybe they were stuck in a way, especially with Ty and Amy, because they knew that, you know, the house would never get built and the business could never really take off and all that. So I felt like maybe they were in a limbo in a sense, and maybe that showed. But as for other characters, I would say those were pretty good seasons, especially for Georgie, for example. I don't think they're necessarily bad, but you know, there's something that's different about them. I do feel like season 14 and 15 is where they're getting kind of that spark back. And I think especially with Amy, there's so much they could tell with her, and I think her being in the center of the story really helps to get all the other stories forward as well.
I have another question about music, because I love a lot of the songs that they've played on the show, and sometimes they just make it into playlists that I listen to a lot. And I was wondering what your favorite songs that have been featured on the show would be. They could be songs that Jack or Lindy or Amy has sung, or just songs that got featured in an episode or something like that. Yeah,
We
that's all.
actually did music theme episode with Easy some time ago, so I'm not gonna go into the like soundtrack of the show because we talked about that in that, but I do really enjoy the music that's original for the show. So the songs that Amy and Jack sing, Lindy songs, and all those the original songs, because I feel like they bring in something to the show that's not something that happens a lot in the shows overall. My favorite songs from the original songs are probably Lindy's song, you know, the one that Amy sings with Stephanie La Rochelle, who plays Brooke, you know, the small town dreamers and all that. I really like that, and their voices just go well, very well together. And I like the story of the song. Then I love the bridge, obviously, you know. It's just the first time I heard it, and it still is so beautiful. And then I remember when I first saw the season 5 episode where Amy and Jack sing Double Shot at Jack's birthday, I was just like blown away. Like obviously I knew Sean was a good singer, and we knew that Amy was a good singer as well, but I think in that moment Amber took her performance to another level. So I was blown away, and I thought like, wow, like is this really her? Like she's good. I mean obviously I knew that, but like she's really good. So I like those three the best.
This question is brought to you by your Amy and Lou relationship theme week that you did, and I just want to know your thoughts. What are your favorite things about Amy and Lou's relationship specifically? What are your favorite plot lines or moments that they've had? Because their sister relationship is so interesting, and I love to see it on screen, and I just want to know other
So
people's thoughts on
this
that.
is probably one of my favorite relationships or duos on the show, Amy and Lou. So this is a hard question. Overall, I like that they're supportive of each other, the contrast they have between the two characters. Like Amy is more involved with horses, Lou's more involved with business, and Lou is very driven and like professional, whereas Amy is more like laid back and just kind of wants to follow her heart. So I really enjoy that aspect. And even though they're very different characters, there's that shared history and there's that shared loyalty and respect and love and care for each other that really just comes out beautifully. And, obviously there have been moments where I've been frustrated with them, but that's just sisterhood. That's how it is. A couple of favorite moments that come to mind right now is the mixtape from season 2 when Lou is going out with Mark and Amy's teasing her about it. I mean, that truly shows the sisterly bond where you're like, don't want to be mean, but also it's like ridiculous what the other one is doing. And then all the hearts to heart they've had over the years, usually in the kitchen or in the bedroom, and especially in season 14 when they were kind of dealing with the loss of Ty. Lou didn't really know how to act around Amy, and Amy really needed her sister, and then they go to do ranch and all that. I really love those. I love that they're not afraid to show their emotions in front of each other, whether that's like a sad feeling or frustration or whatever. I really like that they feel like it's safe to show emotion in front of each other and still have that support at the back of your head, like she's gonna come around, she just needs to hear me out, whenever they're like, okay, I have this guy problem, like help me out. Like I think those are fun to watch, especially because their problems are so different, so the other person can bring a new perspective or a new thought into it. So I really like those as well. And then in season 9, when Georgie went missing or she ran away, I really loved that we got to see Amy support Lou, like when Lou got divorced, like she was there all these times. She was there for Lou, and obviously Lou's been there for Amy. Like when she was about to lose Spartan, like she came in with all the like business knowledge. Like that was such a badass moment. So I really love that they have their own ways to support each other and that they go through ups and downs, and just like every sister duo would. So it's definitely one of my favorite dynamics on the show.
Next question is, what is the weirdest crack ship that you would have liked to see or you would have thought would be interesting that just makes absolutely no sense for the context of the show? Just like the strangest pairing that no one else in the world would have thought of.
So this was a hard one because I don't usually think about these, but I sort of started playing with the thought, who would be the funniest pair? I don't know if I would want to see any of these, probably not. But for the sake of comedy, I'm just going to entertain you with these. Imagine Will, I mean, obviously he's dead, but before he died, Will with Val, this crumpy old guy with this, high class, mean lady. How would that work? Probably wouldn't, but would be fun to watch. Then in the same vein, Tim and Val. I already feel myself getting annoyed, so probably not. What about Chase and Clay? They would destroy each other. They're both very arrogant and annoying and douchey. So would that make a good crack ship? I don't know. There could be something there. Sam and Caleb. Last season when they were in the bar, when there was that whole lumberjack thing going on, I sort of had a feeling like, I know that everyone's like, okay, Sam's crushing on Amy, and but I don't know, there was interesting interesting vibe there. But here's the grand finale for these. What about Bob and Mrs. Bell? They both love animals. They both love nature. They're hermits. Like, I don't know, like almost seems like a match made in heaven. What do you think?
Okay, this is going to be interesting. I would like your personal ranking of all the big ships. So, like, all the big Lou ships, any big Amy ships, Jack and Lisa, Amy and Ty, Ty and Kit, I guess, would be a big one. I don't know if anyone actually ships Ty and Kit. Anyway, Georgie ships, any other ships that you would qualify as like big important ones to the show or big important ones to you. I just want a ranking of how you would rank them.
Okay, so this is the last one. And I'm just gonna go through this quickly, and I chose the main characters because I want to keep this episode short. But how would I rank Amy's ships? Obviously, even though it was not always my favorite and I have problems with it, I would pair Ty and Amy as the first one. Then it gets hard. Like, at this point, I would like it if Amy and Finn would maybe become a thing. I would like to see more of it for sure. But I don't know, like, because it's not an official relationship, but thinking about the future here. The rest, I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of Amy and Caleb together, and I can't imagine it anymore. I just feel like that the moment has passed. I guess if I would have to choose, he would be in the top 3. Caleb, I mean, because he's a cowboy and I like that they have things in common and they get along well. They're friends, whatever. The rest, hated Jesse. Chase, ugh. Cooper, no chemistry, I'm sorry. Sam, one-sided. I can't see happening. I mean, obviously those are not like official ships, but I see people coming back to them from time to time, so I mentioned those. As it's obvious, like, Amy's only really had a really deep and meaningful relationship with Ty, so that's why. Lou, main ship with Mitch, would have loved it. Scott, I mean, there were problems, but at this point of their life, could be interesting. Peter, I have problems with it. But they have kids together, and I guess I'm just gonna have to deal with it, seeing it's happening. The rest, Mark, didn't like that he didn't communicate that they weren't exclusive. I think that should have been a conversation that they should have had. So no. Carl just felt very forceful about things, even though he could understand Lou's New York side, but just seemed obnoxious. Fred, really awkward, makes me uncomfortable to watch. I just can't. Nick, I don't know, he also seems a bit arrogant, and I don't like what happened in season 4, so he's at the bottom of the list as well. Jack, obviously Lisa. I mean, Lindy as well, but we haven't really seen a lot of them. So I don't know if it's fair to compare. But I feel like Lisa, obviously. Val, I don't like the thought of them together, but it has been entertaining to see Val crushing on Jack. So she's up there, but I don't like the actual thought of them together. With Tim, and this was a hard one because I love Casey and I've come to love Jessica. But I would have to say, because Casey was there first, she's my main girl for Tim. But I do love Jessica, so she's also a very good option for him. And I'm really excited to see where they're going next season. For the rest, Callie, I liked her. I think Tim was not a good fit for her, but I did like her, if that makes sense. Janice, I feel like it was just too explosive. I just felt like she was not the best option for Tim. I don't mind her, but I feel like them together, no. Miranda, I don't know. It just feels sort of old. Been there, done that, and that's something you would have for the rest of your life. I feel like maybe in the past it was like exciting and passionate, but at this point of their life, boring. Trisha, especially now, it's hard to think that Tim and Trisha would be together. I mean, I know Jade and Tim kind of have like a father-daughter kind of relationship in a way, but it just seems somehow wrong. Yeah, she was cool though. For Georgie, I went through those as well. It's funny that you mentioned Ty and Kit because, hear me out, I sort of would have liked to see more of that. I know back when season 2 was happening, I was like, no. But I did like Kit, and I think she would have challenged Ty in different ways than Amy did. So I really would have liked to see more of her and how she would have handled Ty's bullshit, because she was not afraid to say things how they were. So I appreciated that. And I think sometimes Ty would have needed that instead of Amy's gentle way of approaching things. I know, sometimes Amy can say things very frankly, but yeah. Carrie Ann, no. And Claire, no. I just think too much drama with those two. And then Caleb, my main ship, is still with Ashley. So bummed when they got divorced. And then, I like Cassandra, but I feel like we still haven't seen a lot of them. And I know they have like a baby and everything. So it's kind of like, I feel like I should like them, even though I don't really know what there is to like. I mean, I like the idea of them, but we've barely seen anything. So it's hard to say. I did like the girl, Kelly, who was around during season 5, but I feel like she just disappeared, which was a shame because she had spunk and she felt like a good challenging match for Caleb. So maybe. Anyway, that's all the questions I had. Thank you everyone for submitting them and taking part of this episode. It was fun to hear your voices. It was fun to hear your questions. They were really great ones. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, even though it was a different one. But I just wanted to try it out. And I wanted to give Izzy a chance to rest, but still keep this podcast going this week. And yeah, I think that's all. Until next time, keep your noses clean and you powder dry, as they say. See ya.